Hi, welcome to Sustain Talks. Today I'm joined by Carina and Chantal from Event Cycle, a company that takes unwanted event waste and gives it a second life by repurposing and redistributing items left over from events. This is the circular economy at its best and a huge benefit to the events industry who are on their mission to become more sustainable. Hello, Carina. Hello, Chantal. How are you both?
Hi.
Yeah, good, thank you. Hello, thank you for having us.
It's good to have you here. And I think the event industry is really in need of hearing a bit more about how they can be more sustainable. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit more about Event Cycle, how it started and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just a bit about where we've come from. Both Chantal and I, we come from the events industry. And more in particular, we used to do everything in the corporate events sector. Chantal used to be a former event director. I used to be in technical production. So yeah, we're very much understanding of how events work from start to finish, that whole process from like the creative concept all the way to the completion. And yeah, so
sorry.
sorry. And well, the reason why we started Event Cycles basically because we saw how much leftover stuff there was at the end of events, and in particular you would stand at nearly empty hall, that your tenancy is ending, and suddenly you turn around and 3 IKEA shelving units have appeared and you have no trucks to put them on. You don't know where they've come from, why they've not been dealt with. They're still in great condition, but now you kind of have to put them in a bin because you only have like an hour left on your tenancy and really no other option. But that's also because it wasn't thought about from the beginning. So we were very much like understanding of that part and thought something needs to be done about it. Like this can't go on. And at the same time, we've been volunteering quite a bit, and we saw that there was a demand for not just volunteering and not just money, but also for items. Because that means that charities don't have to spend money on those items and can instead use it for their community, especially if they get grants. They'll have to use it on their services, or they'd much rather use it on their services than to, for example, buy a couch for a volunteer. So that's sort of where we were like, right, cool, we can put 2 and 2 together. And that's sort of how we started. And now we help event businesses implement sustainable solutions with a lasting social legacy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I was 20 years in the events industry as well, and the picture of when those halls and they close down and they literally everything comes down in seconds, and then it's just one big pile of everything, and the work that you're doing. How does it work then? Do you work with the events industry or the charities or both? Is it a matchmaking? What's the process?
It's a bit like online dating, yes. We have our clients on one end, who are the event agencies, organisers. They can even be suppliers and clients. And then we have our charities, community groups, and social enterprises and schools on the other end. And we know where one group are, what they do and what they want. And then for the other group, we know where they are, what stuff they have. So then we start doing the matchmaking in the local area to where the event is taking place. If we can, we get involved right from the very beginning. And that involves looking at charities and organisations in the local area to try and incorporate them into the event. So you've got the whole storytelling piece whilst the event is taking place. But a lot of the time people come to us halfway through, which we're more than happy to help at, or at the end when you are having that last minute panic. Ideally, we'd work right from the very beginning, but we know what it's like. As like we said, we've been there. And then once we've taken those items, we've found an organisation that they can sit with, and they're happy to take them. We'll organise all of the logistics for that, get it off site in whichever way is suitable for the event. And the quantities could be anything from 1 single-seater sofa up to 25, so 110 pallets of wood or something like that. Yeah, so
whatever you can
it's
think of.
completely scalable. Yeah, and we do it on a first come first served basis, so that we are fair to the people that come to us for items, and we try and do it as close to the event as possible to reduce those transport emissions and benefit the community around the event that's taking place.
So
And oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say the venues, they work with you and support you and help you with everything, because obviously it's good for the venues as well, because then they don't have so much waste going into landfill, etc.
Yeah, it's we've been starting to work with a few venues to help them themselves repurpose items. But yeah, the more venues we are able to work with, the more we're also able to support our event agency clients with, you know, potentially being able to store something for another couple of hours, even though tenancy has ended, in order for a charity to pick up directly and save costs on transport, or just yeah, finding places to gather items together so that it can all be collected in one go. So it's definitely working together to make that happen.
And it's not just sustainability that we're helping the agencies with and social impact. It's also promotion of their services as well, because if you think about sustainability right from the start, you can make changes to reduce your waste at the end, and that's also reducing your carbon footprint, and that then translates into looking good for prospective clients. And we've had a few agencies come to us and say they've won business off the back of what we've been doing with them.
Yeah, that social impact, it's such a big part of, you know, sustainability, social responsibility, ESG. It all comes together, and it's really that whole holistic approach to it, isn't it? Let's talk about what kind of things, materials, what do people need, what do people want, what do you see a lot of, where let's delve into what kind of things are left over from these events.
It's fairly straightforward, actually. It's everything. It's everything. It's, you know, furniture, stationery, textiles and graphics, household electricals, AV, art supplies, building materials, wooden flats. We've done, you know, play sand, scaffolding, hard hats, literally anything that you can think of. We've done it. I mean, we say no very rarely. Stuff we say no to is stuff that's clearly rubbish. Like, there's no need of calling us for cardboard boxes, empty ones. Also, things like flyers that has been printed on, also we shouldn't really be doing that anymore. You know, there's a lot of digital options or alternatives that can be done. We don't do any perishable foods because there's other people that do it really well. What we would say is if you like the quality of stuff that we take, if you would put it into your student accommodation, that's sort of the level of quality we would take. So for example, back in your student days, you would take a table if it had like scratch marks and screw holes, right? Because it's still a table and it'll do the job, right? But, you know, it definitely stops at a broken fridge, because if you can't have your beverages cold, then, you know.
We're gonna be happy.
Yeah. So that's sort of like our baseline, and same goes for things like carpet, you know, the really thin exhibition carpet. You'd probably not want to put that into your house. And so if it's a thicker pile, that's a lot easier to place, even in social housing. And so it's those sort of elements which works really well in the events industry, because stuff that comes off of events is usually in pristine condition, because it had to be perfect for when the client was receiving it. And even if it has a couple of dents or something because of the de-rig, it's still good enough quality for life, for a home life.
Yeah, it really is. What are your views, both of you, on sustainability in the events industry? Do you think it's I don't want to say a growing trend, because obviously everybody talks about sustainability now, but do you think there's some challenges or some struggles with the events industry to be sustainable?
I think there's still people that don't know where to start and see it as one big overwhelming project that they can't really tackle. And the best advice, and it's almost the most annoying advice, is just start. Like with anything in life, you just need to know what the next step is. Don't worry about that big, massive net zero goal. I mean, you do need to have it in mind and set it, but the way you get there is by looking, what can I do next? what small thing can I do? Because you can't do 100% on your next project. Maybe you're lucky enough to be able to, but realistically, you're not going to be able to. So what can you do next on your next project? So just starting small, looking for inspiration all around the industry. Everybody's talking about it now. If you need help, come and talk to somebody like us. We will guide you through what we've seen, good examples, bad examples, where you can start. Even if you literally haven't started, we can tell you the best route of action. And it's bespoke per event. Like any event builder, any creative concept you come up with, it's got to be unique to what you're doing. And so there's no one solution fixes everything. So yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the events industry, I've seen a lot of organisations in the events industry, their simple solution is to turn to offsetting, which of course nature-based solutions is amazing. I support that. But what do you think about those organisations? What's your views on offsetting for events?
I think it's a good way to start, because it also means that you're capturing your carbon footprint. So it's a good place to start, but it definitely should only be the last resort. There's something to remember, like when you're trying to achieve net zero, you have to decrease the carbon emissions that you're producing in the first place as much as physically possible. So then that way your carbon offsetting is as minimal as possible. And they're not just like a license to do whatever you want and then just chuck a lot of money at it and hope for the best, but it should help you with the things that you can't actually reduce. So especially when you're looking at these offset projects, try not to use planting a tree as your only solution. I mean, there's actually not enough land for us to offset as much as from the whole society. There's physically not enough land to do so. But there's really great other alternatives, from rock weathering to research into seaweed farming and offsetting through that. So we'll have a look at local projects. There's so many different alternatives. Offsetting is great because it can actually directly do something for the planet, but we all should be looking at reducing as much as we can. And again, it's great if you're offsetting because you tend to know what your carbon footprint is, but use that to help reduce first and then offset later.
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that. And I mean, obviously, the benefits of the circular economy and repurposing materials, you just couldn't get more benefit from that. Who you mentioned before, charities. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about which type of organisations benefit? Maybe you've got some stories that you want to share.
We have every type of charitable organisation you could ever imagine, from people that look after tiny hedgehogs right up to mental health, disability, people escaping difficult situations, to the homeless. We don't discriminate on who can sign up to us because every cause is worthy, and the charities aren't set up for fun, are they? They're supporting something. So the range of organisations is absolutely massive. And the types of use that charities can make from some of our items surprise us all the time. So it's not just these chairs are going to be used for somebody that's putting on a theatre show or something like that. These graphics aren't just going to get made into products. There are some good examples, like some of the graphics from the Commonwealth Games, albeit a tiny amount, but still significant, went on to create sunshades for little hedgehogs and a hedgehog shelter. And then there was rubber matting. I can't remember which event this is from. Rubber matting was left over that was used as part of a sports hall, and that's gone on to be rabbit runs for rescued rabbits. So there's lots of different uses. And I keep thinking of animal examples, but with some of the wood, everybody thinks wood will get used to make extensions to community centres, which is something that happened up in Glasgow, or to create Santa's grottos or studios. But they also got used to make an emu hut as well. So yeah, lots of animal examples there. There's lots of others too.
We had another example we had was wheelie bins. right? So wheelie bins are not as attractive as people think. I mean, they were in this case. And they had all sorts of purposes. So some of them went to local schools to be actually used as bins. Some of them went to a canoe club that used them to store their paddles. And so they've just made some holes at the bottom because it's easier for them to wheel them around. Some of them have actually now gone to the Ukraine to be used as pet food storage. And some of them have been used for a metal forge. Is that right? Yeah.
Forge. To store all scrap metal in, because they're big enough to do it, and these were galvanized wheelie bins as well, so they're nice and sturdy, which is really helpful. We also had, my favorite one from this year is we had some AI glasses come to us. They were deemed old and out of stock for what the purpose of the company that was using them, which is perfectly fine.
They were used like for Zoom meetings and like how you present in a digital world, right?
But they're also useful in a different world, and that's training surgeons internationally. So there are British surgeons that go out and train surgeons in Malawi, and with these glasses, they've been able to bring their program forward from December to start. Well, actually, it started last month, but in April now. So there you go. So those donations actually do make a difference. They really help a whole variety of organisations, from like allotments to schools to water organisations and everything in between.
I love that. I mean, that whole sort of social value piece, I talk about that a lot, and I think it's so important that, you know, companies look at social value and social impact. How, like, do you produce reports on where the materials go? How does it help if a company is working with you with their social value and social impact reports?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do both. We do qualitative and quantitative support. In a normal project, if a client chooses to, they can opt in to buy a success story, which is a detailed write-up of where items have come from, where they're going, what charities are being supported, what the charities are doing with these items, and where we can, we try and get photos of the items in use as well. So you have a direct proof of what you've done, and it's not just a couple of numbers, but it's actual, look, here's the picture of what's happening. But additionally, we want to ensure that especially with larger projects, we also are able to produce reports which are not just qualitative but also quantitative. So with that, we try and demonstrate the social impact that was made in pounds, which is basically the value of the items that were donated, and hence the value that the charities can put into their own communities instead. We calculate the carbon footprint avoided of items not having to go into landfill, all based on the government's GHG factors. We calculate the carbon footprint avoided of items not having to be purchased new by charities. And then as part of that report, we also provide the sustainable development goals that were supported by the charities that have received those items, so that you can see exactly what targets you're hitting. We look at how close to the community items were placed, look at distances in terms of transport, and then you get more stories about where items have gone, a full list of all of the charities and what they represent, just a full-on picture of what it is all about. So we want to make sure that it's not just those environmental factors and carbon emissions, but also looking at the impact that that those donations have made in a particular place and area. And so we're always looking at practical sustainable solutions linked with this social value in order to amplify that as much as possible. And because the charities get these items for free, they can focus on their own securing funding, servicing their beneficiaries, and just trying to make the best that they can through really financially challenging times that a lot of charities are facing at the moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. And truly a company that is helping everyone from all sides, you know, the events industry to be more sustainable, the charities, the communities, the projects, the list is endless. What's next for you guys? More of the same.
Yeah,
so busy.
Keep trying to do better, help as many projects as we can, and integrate social impact into the planning process. So not just thinking about everything at the end. You've got to think about the beginning, and even if that means keeping some of the materials in use at the agency, that's even better, because that's how it's supposed to be. We can't just keep drawing on new resources all the time. But you can also look at the organisations around where your event is taking place and engage them in what you do, whether that's through education, training, whether that's donating items to them that they actually need and planning that into your event rather than what you need your event and then trying to retrofit it afterwards. So yeah, I think that's a big aim for us, as well as doing more in Europe. We have done a couple of jobs in America now as well, and we're talking to somebody about Singapore next week. So
wow.
So, yeah. Watch out, world. We're coming for you.
Well, from the second I heard about you guys, I literally tell every single person about you. I think you know, sharing good, and it's why I wanted to do this podcast with you. I go across all industries, and actually the event industry is every single industry, because so many corporate organizations run their events. So I'll make sure I share your details and tag you in all of the posts so that people can find you easily. But your website address just is?
It's eventcycle.org. And what we would suggest your followers as well, if it's not just related to the events industry, but if they know any charities, any charities that they volunteer for, or if they're in a parent-teacher association, you know, anything, sports clubs, and they haven't signed up to Event Cycle just yet, get them to do so, because you know, it's a win-win for them. They get free stuff, and especially for things that they need. And yeah, like we said before, we don't discriminate, so anyone can sign up.
Oh, that's brilliant, and a lovely way to end. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and I look forward to seeing you out there in the rest of the world.
Brilliant. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.